Hello, I'm Caroline, and I am a mom of 6 girls, 5 who are homeschooled right now, and 1 toddler. And I, this summer, have been sharing just some tips and tricks and insights into homeschooling, especially with a big family, using a Charlotte Mason approach and specifically using Ambleside Online for most of our curriculum. So I wanted to make some short videos of some basics in our homeschool room so that when I am talking about some bigger subjects like some of the Ambleside years, I don't have to repeat myself a lot when I'm talking about some of the daily work that we do. And today I wanted to make a video about how I use all about reading and all about spelling in our homeschool curriculum and how I schedule the different lessons throughout the week. So if you followed me at all, you know that I love the Orton-Gillingham approach to reading, and that specifically I love using All About Reading for those. And All About Reading isn't necessarily recommended by the Ambleside Online group, but because it was written for children who have learning disabilities, I always took great comfort in using it to teach reading, because I knew if there were any difficulties that I, as their mother, wasn't necessarily trained to catch, like maybe a school tutor would be trained to catch, or standardized testing every year would catch, whatever, that it was still going to address those learning differences, and then I would be able to get the child help they needed, because reading is just something that I'm not willing to mess around with. I think there have been so many undiagnosed reading issues throughout children's lives and history, and it's led them to believe maybe they just don't like reading, or that they're not smart, or things like that. And so there's so much research right now about how important it is for early intervention in reading, and the Orton-Gillingham approach is what dyslexia tutoring would use to address that. And so it was comforting to know that if my child did have dyslexia or something like that, that this was the same approach they would use with them in tutoring. And so then last year I did have a 3rd grader diagnosed officially with dyslexia, and I was able to realize that something was going on because of my experience with All About Reading with my older girls, and then her experience with All About Reading. It was working, but it was just moving very slowly. And so I was able to get her evaluated and get her the help she needed. So she is in tutoring right now. But again, it's the exact same approach in tutoring, just with a tutor who is a little more specialized in how to help her with reading. So I highly recommend this for all families. And it is not typically what I would use in a big family, because it has a little bit of like prep work, some cutting out and things you need to do, which can add up fast. There are ways to cut things out and even laminate them or save them for future students. I've just chosen to get a new workbook for each of my girls, and then I have my teachers' editions here. But I wanted to show you really quick how I schedule this throughout the week. So in the All About Reading program, I've discovered there's a little bit of a cycle. There'll be a lesson where they introduce kind of a concept, a new concept. And so you'll do that, and there will be some sound cards for that. And then you will build some things with the tiles. I highly recommend using the Tiles app, the Letter Tiles app on an iPad. Even if you don't use an iPad for anything else in school, it's worth it to me not to have to deal with all the little magnetic tiles at the table. So I recommend using that app. If you are absolutely against all screens with your child, then they do make the tiles in laminated little squares, so you can use that. For me, the Tiles app is a lifesaver. So you'll build some words through there, and it is all just written out what you should say in the workbook. So here's the page where it's introducing the new sound, and then over here is building words with the letter tiles. So I'm doing that in a day's lesson, and then there's usually some type of activity. These are the dreaded word flippers. Me and my friend joke about how much we hate cutting these out. But they're really good because they're gonna help your child see, how to apply the same sound at the beginning or ends of words, which is super important, especially if you have a child with some learning differences. The tactile part of that might be really important for them. Okay, and so then there's gonna be some new word cards that you're gonna introduce. And then at the end of the lesson, there's a practice sheet. Now, the practice sheets can randomly be super long, or they might be kind of short. So if my child's doing okay, if I'm under the 20-minute goal lesson time that I've set for each reading lesson, maybe less if you have a younger student, I will probably start on the practice sheet, or if it's short, I could save it all for the next day. If it's a really long practice sheet, what I tend to do is like, okay, we're gonna read every other word, or we're gonna read one every 3 words. Sometimes I'd even take like a highlighter and a Sharpie and I put a little dot Each word we're gonna read in the first half of the lesson. So that would be one day, introducing a concept, doing the letter tiles, spelling, doing whatever activity or game is there, and then maybe starting the practice sheet. Day 2, I would finish the practice sheet. Every day you can review some flashcards, so you can review some flashcards, and then you can do the practice sheet. Some of those practice sheets are very tiring for my kids, and so I don't want to burn them out on reading, and so I will use a whole day just to work on that practice sheet. And in here are tons of suggestions for making those words fun. If your child is struggling, you can also do them out of order. You can say like, okay, every 10 words you read, you're gonna get a chocolate chip, or however you wanna motivate them to do that. But just try and make it fun and lighthearted, mix up the words, don't feel like you just have to go down the list. So that would be day 2 of the lesson. So then after you've learned a new concept, typically then there's gonna be a lesson where you read 2 stories. So on the 3rd day of this cycle, I'm gonna read the warm-up page, and if there's a game or something for the story, do those things. And then on the same day I read the practice sheet or the warm-up sheet, I'm gonna have them read the story, because those warm-up words are just getting them ready to see them in the story. So we'll do that with story 1, and then on day 4 of this cycle, we will do the next warm-up sheet and the next story. And then we will have finished 2 lessons. So in a week, 5 days a week, I typically get through 2.5 lessons of All About Reading with my more reluctant readers. Now, if you have a child who is just reading is coming really easy to them, they're moving very fast, they're not worn out by the lessons, or they're able to move through them quickly, I would still make a goal of keeping the lessons at 20 minutes or less, but they may be able to move through the material more quickly. After I finish All About Reading level 1, when I start All About Reading level 2, I usually start All About Spelling with that. And I thought I'd show you how I split up these lessons also. So again, these go on a little bit of a cycle. There will be kind of a new spelling concept that they teach, and there will be some things you do with the letter tiles, some building of those letters. And then there is a list of spelling words, 10 spelling words that are also their flashcards that they will usually work on. So I'll show you step 6. That's what they call lessons. They're just called steps. This is the short A sound. And so they have some warm-up work that you're gonna do with segmenting the words. That's breaking up the words into the sounds, which is a big part of learning to spell. And then you're gonna do some work with the letter tiles. Again, I love the app. And so here's just all the script for how you're going to work with some of these different words. This is all under new teaching. And then usually at the end of the new teaching day, I would have them spell out the 10 new words with tiles on the tile app or with tiles on a magnetic board. And that's the end of the lesson. And then on day 2 of the lesson, I would have them spell the 10 words on paper. And then we can also get into kind of the reinforcement on the words. And these can either be done writing, or they can be done with the letter tiles app again. So in a week, I typically get through, again, 2.5 lessons of spelling, unless you don't want to do it every day, which sometimes with some kids, I haven't done it every day, and some I have. This can count on the days they do the printing as a little bit of handwriting practice also. But that's how I use All About Spelling, starting level 1 when I start level 2 of All About Reading, so staggering those starts a little bit. And typically with my girls, I get through about level 3, and then I feel like they are ready to branch off into just some reading practice with me, using some free reading from the Ambleside online free reads selections, and not do formal phonics training anymore. And then around 4th or 5th grade, I typically switch from spelling lessons to dictation using a Charlotte Mason approach. And there's more information that you can find about that on the Ambleside online website. It's very easy to implement. It doesn't take any special curriculum. Because I have so many girls doing it, I have invested in the Simply Charlotte Mason dictation program, because it just helps me keep track of what grammar points, punctuation points they're kind of learning through all those dictation passages. But I have definitely seen the very cool results of trusting the dictation process as formal spelling training, and what that's done for my girls who were struggling spellers. And then they just hit a place in middle school where it all clicked, all the words they'd been reading over the years and had in their mind's eye. came alive to them and they were able to spell them and spell so much better than they were maybe when we were doing a formal spelling curriculum, but then they had trouble translating that into like real life spelling. So highly recommend both these curriculums. That's how I split them up in our homeschool room.